In Diablo 4's first season, you confronted the Echo of Varshan to obtain Malignant Hearts. Well, you also confronted his minions and spent a lot of time farming them out in the open world. But that's not going to be as important anymore, because Blizzard said seasonal mechanics don't necessarily become a core part of the game. However, a lot of players liked the Malignant Hearts, or at least certain Malignant powers, so I'm really happy to announce that Blizzard has added 5 new unique Malignant rings with these powers, one for each class, to bring back some of your favorites. And so today I'm going to go over what the rings are, how to get them, and what builds they might be useful for. Of course, with the Abattoir of Zir event coming up, be sure to get subscribed if that sounds interesting to you at all. Stay tuned for more updates, leave a like while you're down there, and for now, let's jump into it. Starting with how you get them. The new Malignant rings drop off the Echo of Varshan located beneath the Tree of Whispers. They're available to both players on the Eternal Realm and those enjoying the Season of Blood. So, if you want to brush up on Varshan's mechanics, check out my boss guide after this, or grab your Malignant body parts because it's farming time. So first up, the Barbarian Unique Ring, Red Ring of Furor. This ring gives bonuses to Hammer of the Ancients, Upheaval, and Death Blow. Obviously, it has a wide variety of uses due to being applied to Death Blow, but Hammer of the Ancients and Upheaval are a little bit more clear-cut. So, first up, Hammer of the Ancients will probably be using this ring in most cases. It provides resource generation, which you need, and pretty good overall stats. Plus, you're going to be cycling through Fury fast enough to proc it very consistently. When it comes to Upheaval and Death Blow, things aren't quite as clear. The way most people are building Upheaval currently is a big burst of damage with Overpower and Furious Upheaval, meaning you don't actually want to spam the skill, so you're not cycling Fury, meaning the Red Ring of Furor is probably a poor choice. On the other hand, Upheaval's interesting because it applies to a lot of different builds. Now, for many of the builds that already exist on Maxroll, it's probably not going to be a great fit. However, there are a couple cases where it might actually work quite well. Personally, my guess is that it could very well fit into Walking Arsenal. It's probably not going to fit into Thorns for pretty obvious reasons, and there may be some interesting ways to apply it to Whirlwind. I have no idea about Double Swing. I just don't know enough about the build. What I do know is our Barbarian writers are hard at work, so stay tuned. They're going to have updates, and the rings should be included in the guides where appropriate, possibly in a variant or possibly in the main setup in the very near future. Then we have Airidah's Inexorable Will, the Druid Unique Ring. Now, I've played quite a bit of Druid this season, and so I was looking forward to this. Having a pull's pretty darn good, though the once and then 5 seconds later second time isn't as good as the original that pulled, I believe it was, every second. For Pulverize, aspect rules are just too competitive. You're going to give up a lot of damage for clear that you probably don't need. My own personal advice there would be, if you want extra clear on Pulverize, go with something like Hemomancy. Hemomancy is a little bit lower opportunity cost and also gives really good value since you're already scaling life and physical damage. Now, recently I fell in love with Tornado Druid, and so I'm very excited to see that it's being recommended that the ring will work well on Tornado. You do have the damage to close, which is good. You have ultimate skill cooldown, which is also quite good, and you have up to 10.5% willpower, which is really cool. Having a massive willpower bonus directly translates into a damage multiplier, and this isn't a stat you normally get to see on rings. Plus, having everything grouped up in the tornadoes means there's more of a party. Now, I don't have much experience with Shred, but from talking to the Druid Wolf pack, or I guess Wolf, Bear, and other pack, there's a good chance that Shred is going to be using the ring as well, as it benefits from grouping similarly to Tornado. For Stormclaw, the discussion seemed to be a little bit more mixed, where on the one hand, it can absolutely afford to drop a legendary aspect. On the other hand, the pull maybe doesn't do enough due to how far apart they are. Personally, when I played Stormclaw, I would have given anything for a really, really consistent pull. Having one like Corpse Tendrils, oh my god. Can I just have a mercenary follow me around that's a necromancer and do that? Then again, your Petrify cooldown's already pretty short. So, as you can see here, there's a chance that by leaning into things like Anticipation and Flicker Step, Stormclaw could end up with a short enough cooldown on Petrify, but it's up pretty consistently. After all, if a cooldown's like 7 seconds, you're going to get 2 pulls every 7-ish seconds. That's pretty darn good. So this could make Stormclaw feel a lot better to play, even if the objective power level isn't that much higher. Lightning Storm's another build that I haven't played too much of myself, but it sounds like the ring isn't going to be very good. Now, support druid's where things get interesting, especially the upcoming Abattoir of Zir event, where grouping up large amounts of enemies and then having another build AoE them down, like maybe that Upheaval Barbarian from earlier, Well, that sounds pretty darn promising. As for Boulder, I messed with Boulder a little bit after I got a Dolmen Stone, didn't play it a ton. It's definitely going to be something where we need more time to play and feel out, because it could be really good. It could group everything perfectly into your line of boulders, or it could group everything too close to the character. And if that happens, your boulders actually won't do any damage, making the ring's effect not only bad, but outright detrimental. For Necromancer, we consulted our local priests of Rathma, and I promise no children were sacrificed in the making of this video, though I won't talk about the cows. In short, it's really, really good. Who knew that having a ring that played your build for you was really good? For example, in Infinimist, you can use it alongside X-Falls or Zafals, let me know down in the comments if it's X-Falls or Zafals, to enable a Corpse Explosion Black River variant, or just to do a lot of automation and heavy lifting. Something that's really important here is it has +3 to ranks of all corpse skills, which is absolutely insane value. You're talking about reducing cooldowns, increasing damage, all the good stuff. It even has Lucky Hit, which is a really important stat on a lot of Necromancer builds. The ring is excellent and well statted overall. For Sever, it's also really powerful. Sounds like not quite as important because you could use Zafals instead, but it gives you resource automation and buff uptime, which is always good. You can forget to hit a buff, but if your buff happens automatically, you can't forget to hit it anymore. For Blood builds, automation's good. And the pattern's going to continue here. I could just say automation's good for every single build. Realistically, though, quality of life is always an improvement. If I could choose to do 10% more damage, or have quality of life, such as multiple buff effects being activated automatically, then it's a very easy choice. I'm going to have multiple buff effects activated automatically. That's the case with this ring. So, personally, I would use Ring of Sacrilegious Soul in every Necromancer build. I'd hard farm for it, and I'd really hope to get it early, regardless of rolls. You'll really want the 3 to corpse skills. Everything else, you know what, you get what you get, and it's probably going to be good enough. This is a really strong feels-good item. I expect that playing the build with versus without it is going to be a night and day difference, much like it was with the heart itself in Season 1, and so Necromancer players can look forward to having a lot of fun. It looks so much fun, actually, that I'm really getting tempted to level a Necromancer and try the ring out for myself. But it can't all be sunshine and roses, and when it comes to Rogue, the Writhing Band of Trickery isn't looking that great. There could be some niche uses, where you need to taunt a boss away from you, and this could be quite good in hardcore, as it will help you to survive. And while Dioxide and Woody need to do some more testing on Rogue builds to know for sure, there's a pretty good chance this isn't going to see very much use. That at best it's going to be a niche swap item, and at worst you generally don't want to use it because you're giving up too much by losing that legendary aspect. Remember, unlike a heart where the opportunity cost was effectively nothing because skulls had armor and then you got armor on your heart, you are giving up a whole ring with all of its stats with the legendary aspect to use one of these Writhing bands, and in a lot of cases, it's just not worth it. Though keep in mind, there could be some niche cases where it's actually useful, such as taunting things into a trap-focused build, so keep an eye out, maybe there'll be some updates there. And last up for Sork, Northwar kept it simple. You put it on every build, which pretty much tracks with my experience on Sork, where you often did 2 to 3 different elemental damage types. You can probably work in a 4th fairly decently now, and so you're going to be getting a lot of damage bonuses. I can't help but feel like, in this case, Rasha's Iridescent Loop is the least interesting thing on the list. Is it powerful? Oh yes, absolutely. It adds a ton of damage to any build, but that's exactly why it's not interesting. Thinking about the Red Ring of Furor, it's a mechanic that you play around that increases your damage if you play correctly. Thinking about Inexorable Will, you pull enemies in, which enables a new playstyle. On Necromancer, Sacrilegious Soul, you automate defensive buffs, which is not only insanely powerful, but makes your build feel better to play and lets you play things that might otherwise have too many buttons. On Rogue, while the Band of Trickery isn't that powerful, it is at least interesting. Rasha's Iridescent Loop has cooldown recovery, resource generation, lucky hit, non-physical damage, all the things that you want on a Sork, all in one big old pile. And it gives you up to 15% multiplicative damage for 4 seconds. Dealing elemental damage refreshes all the bonuses, so you could, at the start of a dungeon, find one way to proc a little bit of shadow damage, Or you could put on an Endariel's that you have and proc poison damage once at the very start. And then you will have that buff up for the entire time provided you stay in combat, which is absolutely insane. Sorc builds already want to use 2 to 3 elements. I think this is going to push a lot of them to use 3 elements. This will enable some builds that just didn't quite have the damage, but overall I'm a little disappointed because I would have hoped that Omnipower was coming back, where you got sort of really cool projectile interactions based on stacking mana. To me, that's a lot more interesting from a theory crafting perspective. While I think this is more powerful in the objective sense, it's also just a little bit boring. But hey, it's the best sorcerer ring by far and goes into every build with no exceptions. So follow Northwar's advice, and if you're playing any of our Sorc builds or anyone else's, well, time to start farming yourself a Tau Rashas. But that's it for the 5 new Malignant rings that just got added to Diablo 4. This has been a mix of my own thoughts and the thoughts of our class guide writers over at Maxwell GG. Do keep in mind, the rings are brand new and there's still a lot of theory crafting to do, so don't be surprised if something changes and in the future, a build that I said maybe it's not great for, ends up using it, or a build where I said, yeah, it sounds pretty good, ends up not using it because the legendary aspect just ended up feeling like a little bit too much lost opportunity cost. Of course, if you want, you can read more about this over at Maxwell GG, and if you need a build to play with your new Malignant ring, then check out either my Druid build or my Stormclaw build. I'll link to both of those up in the card and down in the description below. They are based off of Maxwell builds, but I also incorporated some things from my own experiences as well. Now with that said, thanks for watching, and a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. And for $5 a month, you might see your name on screen, just like these fine folks here. But that's all for me today. Thanks again for watching, hope you learned something, good luck in farming those rings, and I'll see you again sometime soon.